If someone had told me Untouchable Boss could read the exact millimeter where comfort ends, I wouldn't have believed it. I kept a death grip on the free gallery ticket, half expecting someone to yank it away. The irony wasn't lost on me that a woman who drafts blueprints for a living needed charity admission to see actual art. But here I was, Noelle Carter, 32, barely scraping by, surrounded by Cape Coral's cultural elite sipping wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The gallery murmured with polite conversation and the clink of champagne flutes. I palmed a fistful of crackers from the appetizer table and slid them into my purse. No shame. Dinner tonight would be whatever I could salvage from this reception. Then I saw it. The painting stopped me cold. Two figures intertwined in abstract brush strokes, their forms melting into each other against a backdrop of deep blues and violent reds. The artist had captured something raw, something desperate. Love or destruction? Maybe both. Devastating, isn't it? The voice came from beside me. I turned to find a woman studying the same painting. Her blonde hair catching the gallery's soft lighting, designer jacket, understated jewelry that probably cost more than my rent, but her blue eyes held genuine emotion as she gazed at the canvas. Yeah, I managed. It's like they're drowning together. She smiled. Or saving each other. I'm Vivian Hale. I wiped my cracker-dusty fingers on my thrift store dress before shaking her hand. Her skin was soft, manicured. Mine was stained with ink from today's drafting work. The composition is remarkable. See how the artist uses negative space to create tension? I nodded. Though honestly, I just saw two people clinging to each other in a storm. You work in the arts? Vivian asked. Architectural drafting, mostly small projects, nothing glamorous. Her eyes lit up. That's fascinating. I'm in real estate, luxury properties. The intersection of art and function has always intrigued me. Of course, she was. I could practically smell money on her, like a designer perfume. This piece taps into something primal, she went on. The vulnerability of connection, the risk of letting someone truly see you. I found myself studying her profile as she spoke, sharp cheekbones, lips moving with practiced certainty. She radiated success, while I stood there in a second-hand outfit trying not to look as misplaced as I felt. I should probably go, I blurted. The gap between us suddenly felt enormous. Wait. Her fingers brushed my arm. I was hoping we could keep talking. Your perspective on the piece? It intrigues me. The warmth of her touch lingered even after she pulled back. 3 days later, I was hunched over my laptop at Coastal Grounds, my usual coffee haunt, when a familiar voice cut in. Mind if I join you? Vivian stood there with an expensive-looking latte, a cream blazer that likely cost more than my monthly income. My heart did something foolish. How did you find me? Lucky guess. You said this was your favorite spot to work. She slid into the chair across from me like she belonged there. I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. I shut my ancient laptop, suddenly self-conscious, about the machine, about abstract art, about having opinions at all. You see things differently than most people I know, she said, blue eyes fixed on me with unsettling intensity. It's refreshing. I almost laughed. You mean naive? No, honest. The barista called another order, and I used the moment to pull out my sketchbook, the one thing that steadied my nerves. And I was definitely on edge around her. What are you working on? Vivian leaned closer, her perfume threading through the coffee aromas. Nothing serious, just doodling. But my hand moved on its own, tracing the line of her jaw, the way the window light caught in her hair. She watched herself appear on the page, something unreadable flickering across her face. You're talented. It's just sketching. Noelle, she said my name like it mattered. What's your dream project? If money weren't an issue, I set down my pencil. Honestly, I'd love to design affordable housing, beautiful spaces that don't cost a fortune. Everyone deserves to live somewhere that makes them feel human. That's exactly what I mean. Different perspective. She pulled out her phone. I have a proposition. I need architectural drawings for some properties I'm marketing, high-end stuff. The pay would be substantial. My pulse quickened. How substantial? She named a figure that made my coffee cup tremble in my hand. Why me? You could hire established firms. Because you see things others miss. And because she hesitated, because I'd like an excuse to spend more time with you. The honesty in her voice hit me like a physical force. Heat crept up my neck. Is this some kind of charity case thing? Do I look like the charity type? Her laugh was rich, slightly husky. This is business with benefits. The word benefits hung between us, loaded with possibility. What kind of benefits? Instead of answering, she reached across the table and traced one finger along my sketched version of her face. You captured something I didn't know was visible. What's that? Longing. My breath caught. The coffee shop noise faded to nothing. It was just her blue eyes and the electric space between us. I should probably think about this, I whispered. Take all the time you need. But Noelle, she stood, gathering her purse. Some opportunities don't come twice. As she reached the door, she turned back. Meet me at the Heron Crest property tomorrow at 7. If you're interested in the job. The way she said job made it clear we were discussing something more than floor plans. The Heron Crest property towered above me like a glass monument to wealth. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching my portfolio bag, staring up at the luxury high-rise that probably housed more money than my entire neighborhood had ever seen. My palms were sweating despite the California evening breeze. The lobby's marble floors echoed under my cheap flats as I approached the reception desk. Everything gleamed with that particular shine that screamed expensive maintenance. I'm here to see Vivian Hale. Penthouse level. She's expecting you. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, Vivian stood waiting in her office doorway, silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased Cape Coral's glittering coastline. You came. Her smile held relief I hadn't expected. I need the work. Of course. Come in. Her office was an exercise in controlled elegance. White furniture, abstract sculptures, and that view that probably added 6 figures to the rent. I felt like a smudge on a pristine canvas. Impressive setup, I managed. It does the job. Coffee, wine. I should probably keep my head clear for business. She poured herself a glass of wine anyway. Her movements are fluid and confident. The properties I need drawn are luxury condos, spacious layouts, high-end finishes. Think artistic precision meets practical luxury. I pulled out my tablet, trying to look professional. Timeline, flexible, quality over speed. She moved closer ostensibly to see my screen. Show me some of your work. As I scrolled through my modest portfolio, her proximity made concentration difficult. She smelled like jasmine and something distinctly expensive. This is beautiful. She pointed to a small house design I'd done for a friend. Simple but elegant. You understand space intuitively. Thanks, Noelle. Her voice dropped. Look at me. I lifted my eyes from the screen. She was closer than necessary. Close enough that I could see flecks of green in her blue irises. This isn't just about business, is it? I whispered. Do you want it to be? The question hung between us like a challenge. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't know what you want from me. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure either. Her fingers brushed my cheek, but I know I haven't stopped thinking about you since the gallery. The touch sent electricity straight through me. Vivian, tell me to stop. Instead, I leaned into her hand. Her thumb traced my lower lip, and rational thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. This is complicated, I breathed. Good things usually are. When she kissed me, it was nothing like the gentle exploration I might have expected. Her mouth was urgent, hungry, like she'd been holding back for days. I kissed her back with equal desperation, my hands fisting in her expensive blazer. We broke apart, both breathing hard. Damn, she whispered against my lips. Yeah, we should probably discuss the contract terms. I laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. Right now, maybe over dinner, my place. The invitation carried weight beyond food. I thought about my empty apartment, my stack of overdue bills, the careful distance I maintained from people who could hurt me financially or emotionally. I should go home. Should? She stepped back, giving me space to think. But what do you want? What I wanted was to strip away every barrier between us. What I wanted was to forget about class differences and focus on the way she looked at me like I mattered. Your place, I said quietly. Her smile was triumphant and tender at once. Vivian's penthouse made her office look modest. California ceiling windows wrapped around the living space, offering a panoramic view of Cape Coral's waterfront. I froze just inside the doorway, eyes skimming over art that belonged in museums and furniture worth more than my last 6 months' income. You're doing that thing again, Vivian said, slipping my jacket onto a hook. What thing? Running the math. Pricing everything. Measuring the distance between my world and yours. She wasn't wrong. I couldn't stop cataloging the wealth around me. Does it bother you, the money? She asked. It bothers me that you think it's the most important thing about you, I said. She crossed to the kitchen, pulling ingredients from a refrigerator big enough to house a small family. I thought we'd keep it simple. Pasta, wine, and conversation that doesn't involve square footage. I perched on a bar stool and watched her move, efficient, assured. You cook? Shocking, right? Rich woman who can feed herself. She smirked over her shoulder. I lived on ramen for years building my business. Some skills stick. The admission surprised me. I'd assumed her money had always been there. What made you go into real estate? I asked. She didn't answer at once, knife steady as it tapped through vegetables. After my divorce, I needed something that was entirely mine. Property is tangible. You can touch it, improve it, sell it. Her mouth tightened. I was married to a man who thought my ambitions were cute, until they turned profitable. The blade bit harder into the board. He liked the idea of a wife more than the reality of a partner. Something in her voice made me reach across the counter, covering her hand with mine. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me to value authenticity. Her fingers laced with mine, just like at the gallery. You didn't try to impress me or tell me what you thought I wanted to hear. I was too intimidated to be strategic, I admitted. Exactly. She lifted my knuckles to her lips and pressed a soft kiss there. Heat bloomed low in my stomach at the simplicity of it. We ate by candlelight on her terrace, the warm California night threaded with salt and jasmine. Conversation unfurled more easily than I expected, work to dreams to those small disclosures that knit themselves into intimacy. Tell me about your family, she said, topping off our glasses. Not much to tell. I've been on my own since 18. You learned self-sufficiency, she said softly. Lonely, though. The gentle truth landed deeper than I'd braced for. Sometimes. I know the feeling. She drew her chair closer. Success is isolating. People either want something from you, or they assume you need nothing. She searched my face. Do you have everything you need? I held her gaze across the narrow space. I thought I did, until 3 days ago. The words hung there, bare, unadorned, honest. When she leaned in, I met her halfway. This kiss wasn't the urgent, stolen collision from her office. It was slower, surer, an answer to a question neither of us had dared to ask out loud. Slower, deeper, like we had all the time in the world to memorize each other. Her hands found my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. Noelle, yeah, stay tonight. The request was soft, hopeful. I thought about my empty apartment, about the careful walls I'd built around myself. About all the reasons this was dangerous. Okay. Her bedroom was as elegant as the rest of the penthouse, but it felt more personal. Books stacked on the nightstand, a worn silk robe draped over a chair, photographs of places she'd traveled displayed on floating shelves. When she kissed me again, urgency returned. Her hands moved to the buttons of my shirt, fingers sure and patient. I helped her with my clothes, then worked at hers, revealing smooth skin and gentle curves that made my breath catch. The expensive lingerie was beautiful, but her soft gasp when I touched her was what made my heart race. We moved together slowly, learning each other's responses, finding a rhythm that felt both new and inevitable. Her whispered encouragements and the way she called my name created an intimacy I'd never experienced. When release finally claimed us both, it was with a sweetness that had nothing to do with physical pleasure and everything to do with connection. Afterwards, we lay tangled in her silk sheets, her fingertips trailing lazy patterns across my skin. Outside, Cape Coral glittered like scattered diamonds, but I only had eyes for the woman beside me. 2 weeks of stolen evenings at Vivian's penthouse had me believing in possibilities I'd never dared imagine. I'd started keeping a spare toothbrush in her marble bathroom, my coffee mug beside hers in the dishwasher. The architectural drawings for her properties were progressing beautifully. But honestly, work had become secondary to the way she looked at me across her dining table or the sound of her laugh when I made terrible jokes. I was sketching elevation plans at her kitchen island when her phone started buzzing incessantly. Popular morning, I teased without looking up. The silence that followed made me glance over. Vivian stood frozen, staring at her screen with an expression of pure horror. What's wrong? Someone posted photos of us. Her voice was barely a whisper on social media, multiple platforms. My pencil clattered to the floor. What kind of photos? She turned the screen toward me. There we were, kissing outside the gallery, holding hands at a restaurant, laughing together on her terrace. Intimate moments I thought were private, now accompanied by cruel comments and cruel speculation. Who would do this? I asked, though my stomach already knew. Has to be Kyle, my former marketing assistant. I fired him last month for embezzling. Her hands shook as she scrolled through increasingly vicious comments. He always resented my success. The notifications kept coming. Friend requests from strangers. Messages that made my skin crawl. Within an hour, local news sites had picked up the story. Cape Coral's luxury real estate queen caught in scandalous lesbian affair with struggling artist. This is a disaster, I said, watching my phone light up with unknown numbers. It's just gossip. It'll blow over. But we both knew better. By afternoon, her business phone was ringing constantly. Not with clients, but with reporters and gossip-hungry locals. My own phone buzzed with notifications from social media accounts I'd never used. Messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. All wanting details about my relationship with Cape Coral's most visible businesswoman. 3 clients canceled their listings today. Vivian announced coming home to find me pacing her living room. Said they needed agents who maintained more professional boundaries. Maybe I should leave. Don't you dare. She grabbed my hands, stopping my restless movement. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I'm the complication in your perfect life. You're the best thing in my perfect life. Her grip tightened. We're going to weather this. But the storm kept intensifying. Local Facebook groups buzzed with speculation about our relationship. Religious organizations posted condemnations. Anonymous accounts created memes of our photos, adding captions that made me physically sick. The worst part wasn't the strangers. It was watching Vivian's carefully built world crumble because of her association with me. Her business partner, Conrad Whitmore, called an emergency meeting. I sat in her office's reception area, listening to raised voices through expensive doors. Your personal choices are affecting our bottom line. Conrad's voice carried clearly. We've lost 4 major clients in 2 days. Since when do our clients' personal prejudices dictate business decisions? Since those prejudices cost us millions in commission. His tone turned conciliatory. Look, I don't care who you sleep with, but our clientele is conservative, wealthy, traditional. They expect discretion. Discretion or invisibility. Whatever keeps the money flowing. When Vivian emerged 20 minutes later, her composure was intact, but her eyes were storm dark. Fire her. Conrad followed her out, pointing at me like I was furniture. End whatever this is and salvage what's left of our reputation. Get out of my office, Vivian. Be practical. I said get out. After Conrad left, we sat in terrible silence. Through her windows, Cape Coral looked the same as always. Beautiful, expensive, untouchable, but everything felt different now. You should listen to him, I said finally. No, look at the facts. I'm costing you your business, Noelle. She knelt in front of my chair, taking my hands. You're not something I can just turn off. You're not a mistake I can fix by pretending you don't exist. But if staying together destroys everything you've built, then we'll build something new. Her certainty terrified me more than the online harassment. I'd spent my whole life expecting disappointment, preparing for abandonment. Vivian's unwavering loyalty felt too good to trust. The harassment escalated beyond cruel comments. Someone leaked my address and strangers started showing up at my apartment building. Photographers camped outside coastal grounds, making my favorite coffee shop impossible to visit. 3 potential freelance clients canceled contracts after Googling my name and finding the scandal. We need to talk, I said, finding Vivian in her office late Friday evening. She'd been working 16-hour days trying to salvage her business. I know what you're going to say. Do you? I set a manila folder on her desk. 6 more clients terminated their agreements today. Your biggest developer pulled out of the Mariner Quay project. You're hemorrhaging money because of me. She didn't deny it. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and her usually perfect appearance showed cracks. Designer clothing couldn't hide exhaustion. It's temporary. People have short attention spans. Conrad was right. I'm destroying your life's work. Conrad is a coward who puts profit above principle. Her voice carried exhaustion underneath the defiance. I opened the folder, spreading papers across her pristine desk. Bank statements, canceled contracts, projected losses. The numbers painted a devastating picture. Look at this. Really, look, you're losing everything. Vivian stared at the documents without speaking. When she finally lifted her gaze, tears shone at the corners. So what are you saying? That we face reality. You're Cape Coral's golden girl. I'm nobody. The math doesn't work. The math? Her voice spiked. You think this is about arithmetic? I think it's about survival, yours and mine. She shot to her feet and paced to the windows framing her crumbling empire. When my ex-husband left, people said I was better off. Told me successful women don't need men dragging them down. Funny how those same people now insist successful women can't afford unconventional relationships. She exhaled, brittle. Maybe they were right both times. The words hung like a blade. Vivian turned back, unreadable. Is that truly what you believe? I wanted to lie, to nod, to keep it clean and practical. But standing in her office while her world teetered because she'd chosen me, honesty was the least I could give. I believe I love you. And I believe love isn't enough when it costs you everything else. Her sharp inhale said she hadn't expected a confession wrapped around a goodbye. Noelle, someone threw a brick through my landlord's window yesterday. I pulled out my phone, the photo stark on the screen. A note said she shouldn't rent to deviants. Mrs. Leong is 70. She doesn't deserve this because I'm inconvenient. Vivian crossed the room in 3 strides and framed my face in her hands. We'll figure it out. How? By hiding? Pretending we're just business associates. I stepped out of her touch. I won't be your secret shame. You're not. Then what am I? Because right now I feel like the mistake that's costing you your dreams. The hit landed. Vivian flinched as if struck. That isn't fair. Neither is watching you lose clients because you're with the wrong person. Stop. She moved in again, desperation erasing the anger. Don't do this. Don't make me choose between my business and my heart. I'm not making you choose. I'm making it simple. Before she could answer, I kissed her, soft, sure, final. She kissed back with the panic of someone trying to hold water in cupped hands. This isn't over, she breathed against my mouth. It is. I gathered my papers, leaving only the folder labeled termination of contract. My architectural work for her company ended there. Noelle, wait, I was already heading for the door. If I looked back, if I saw her standing amid the wreckage of her professional life, I'd lose my resolve. Take care of yourself, Vivian. Damn you, her voice broke. Damn you for making me fall for someone who runs when it gets hard. I paused with my hand on the handle. And damn you for making me believe someone like you could really want someone like me. The elevator doors slid shut on her calling my name. I knew I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. But sometimes the worst decisions feel like the only choices left. My apartment felt like a tomb. 3 days of refusing Vivian's calls, ignoring her texts. Pretending the doorbell wasn't ringing every evening around 7. I survived on instant noodles and stubborn pride. Sketching meaningless buildings that would never exist. The harassment had followed me home anyway. Strangers still recognized me at the grocery store, whispering behind displays of cereal. My landlord, Mrs. Leong, avoided eye contact when we passed in the hallway. Even cutting Vivian out of my life hadn't erased the damage. I was hunched over my drafting table working on a fictional community center design when my phone buzzed with an unknown local number. Is this Noelle Carter? Who's asking? Julian Carr. I'm a crisis management consultant working with Hale Whitmore Properties. We need to talk. I have nothing to do with that company anymore. Ma'am, with respect, you have everything to do with their current situation. Coffee 1 hour. Something in his tone made refusal impossible. Coastal grounds. But I can't promise I'll be helpful. Julian Carr looked exactly like someone who cleaned up rich people's messes. Expensive suit, calculating eyes, handshake that assessed my worth in seconds. Miss Carter, thank you for meeting me. What do you want? To fix a problem that's costing my client her livelihood. He slid a tablet across the table. These are the leaked photos that started this mess. Notice anything interesting about their metadata? I squinted at technical details I barely understood. Should I? They were uploaded from Kyle Mercer's personal devices, but more importantly, they were taken with professional telephoto equipment. Someone paid him for surveillance. My blood chilled. Surveillance? Your relationship with Mrs. Hale was being monitored for weeks before those photos went public. This wasn't revenge. It was sabotage. By who? Julian's smile was sharp as razors. Someone who benefits from Hale Whitmore properties failing. Someone with investment capital ready to swoop in when their client list collapses. The coffee shop noise faded to background static. You're saying this was business? I'm saying you were both pawns in someone else's chess game. The question is whether you'll let them win. He left 15 minutes later, promising to be in touch. I sat staring at my cold coffee, processing the revelation that our private moments had been weaponized by strangers. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Noelle, it's me. Don't hang up. Vivian's voice hit me like physical pain. How did you get this number? Julian said you'd spoken. Noelle, we need to talk about what he found. I don't want to hear it. Someone orchestrated this whole thing. We're not the problem. We never were. Her words cracked something inside my chest. It doesn't matter. The damage is done. To hell with the damage, anger replaced, pleading in her voice. I spent 3 days rebuilding my client base from scratch. You know what I discovered? The clients worth keeping don't care who I love. The ones I lost were bigots I shouldn't have represented anyway. Vivian, I'm not finished. I also discovered that not having you here is killing me slowly. My penthouse feels empty. My bed feels cold. I keep buying groceries for 2 people and then remembering you're gone. Tears blurred my vision. Don't do this. Do what? Fight for us? Because that's exactly what I intend to do. I can't go through this again. The harassment, the public humiliation. Then don't go through it alone. The simplicity of her statement broke me. For 3 days, I'd convinced myself that leaving her was noble, protective, necessary. But sitting in our coffee shop, surrounded by memories of better times, isolation felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. Where are you? I whispered. Parking lot. I've been driving around for an hour hoping you'd take my call. Through the window, I saw her BMW in the far corner, engine running. Even from distance, her posture radiated exhaustion. Come inside. She appeared in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered. The confident businesswoman was gone, replaced by someone who'd been stripped raw by loss. You look terrible, I said when she reached my table. So do you, she sat down carefully like sudden movements might spook me. Noelle, I'm sorry for what? For letting you believe this was your fault. For not protecting us better. For making you feel like you had to sacrifice yourself to save me. I thought I was doing the right thing. Her hand moved across the table, hovering near mine without quite touching. The right thing would have been trusting me to make my own choices about what risks are worth taking. I looked at those familiar fingers, remembering how they felt against my skin, how they moved when she sketched ideas in the air while talking. What happens now? Now we decide whether we're stronger together or apart. She finally closed the distance, covering my hand with hers. Personally, I think we're pretty damn formidable as a team. The coffee shop faded around us. It was just Vivian's blue eyes and the electric current running between our joined hands. I missed you, I admitted. Thank God, because I have a proposition that requires both our expertise. Vivian's proposition involved confronting our saboteur directly. 24 hours after our coffee shop reconciliation, I found myself in her BMW driving toward Conrad Whitmore's waterfront home. Julian Carr had done his homework. Financial records showed Conrad had been quietly negotiating with a competing real estate firm, planning to dissolve Hale Whitmore Properties and start fresh without his inconvenient partner. You're sure about this? I asked as we pulled into his circular driveway. Absolutely. Vivian's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He used our relationship as a weapon against us. Time for consequences. Conrad answered his door wearing tennis whites and an expression of surprise that shifted quickly to annoyance. Vivian, what are you doing here? Introducing you to my partner in every sense of the word. She took my hand deliberately, intertwining our fingers. The simple gesture felt like reclaiming territory. I don't understand. Sure you do. Vivian pushed past him into his marble foyer. You hired Kyle Mercer to photograph us. You orchestrated the media leak. You sabotaged your own company to push me out. Conrad's face went pale. That's a serious accusation. It's also true. I pulled out Julian's evidence folder. Bank transfers to Kyle. Contracts with Mercer really dated 2 weeks ago. Your new partnership agreement contingent on dissolving Hale Whitmore. You have no proof I knew about any surveillance. Actually, we do. Vivian's smile was predatory. Kyle kept receipts, including recordings of your conversations about timing the leak for maximum damage. Conrad sank into an expensive leather chair, deflated. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Conservative clients, traditional values, family money on the line. So, you destroyed us to protect your reputation? I was protecting the business by turning my private life into public scandal. Vivian's composure cracked, revealing fury underneath. By terrorizing Noelle with harassment you orchestrated. I never meant for it to get so vicious, but you meant for it to get us apart. I stepped forward, surprising myself with my own anger. You used homophobia as a business strategy. It would have worked if you just walked away quietly. The admission hung in the air like poison gas. Conrad Whitmore, respectable businessman, family man, confessing to deliberate cruelty with casual indifference. Well, here's the thing, Vivian said, pulling legal documents from her purse. I'm not walking away. I'm buying you out. What? Julian negotiated a very reasonable settlement. You get fair market value for your share of the company, and you sign a non-disclosure that keeps you out of prison for corporate sabotage. Conrad's color drained to a sickly gray. You can't prove intent. Want to test that in court? I asked. Because I'm happy to let a jury decide whether hiring photographers to stalk your business partner counts as harassment. The fight leaked out of him like air from a punctured tire. How much? Vivian named a number that made him flinch. 30 days to accept, or I file criminal charges and civil suits that take everything. We left him in his marble mansion, staring at contracts that would end his Cape Coral real estate career. The drive back felt like a win, until Vivian pulled into a scenic overlook and cut the engine. I need to say something before we go any farther. She turned to face me fully. I've been afraid this whole time. Of what? Of not being enough. Of being too much. Of loving someone who might leave when it gets complicated. Her voice fell to a whisper. Of being the kind of person who picks career over heart when it counts. I cradled her cheek with my thumb. You didn't pick career over heart. You chose fight over flight. In moments like this, that's the choice that matters. She leaned into my hand, eyes closing. I love you, Noelle. Not just how you look or how you make me feel. I love your stubborn independence, your generous heart. The way you notice beauty other people miss. I love you, too, your fierce loyalty. And how you refuse to settle for less than what you want. When she kissed me, it wasn't hungry or tentative. It was a vow, claiming, promising, celebrating. A month later, the headlines told a different story. Harris Properties, under new management, had donated architectural services for Cape Coral's first affordable housing development. The lead designer, Noelle Carter, residential specialist. Think they'll connect the dots? I asked over breakfast on her terrace. Let them, Vivian said. It's news people can feel good about. She was right. The community center plan I'd sketched during our separation had become something real, spaces where families could live with dignity and light. Vivian made it happen with connections, funding, and sheer will. Any regrets? She asked, topping off our coffee. I glanced around the penthouse that had slowly absorbed my life, my drafting table by the windows, my books shelved with hers, my mug parked beside the fancy espresso machine. Just one. Concern flickered across her face. What's that? I regret that it took a crisis to learn love isn't about deserving each other. It's about choosing each other every day, complications and all. Good thing we're both slow learners, she said, smiling. 6 months after Conrad's buyout, I stood in the same gallery where everything began, watching couples discover art the way Vivian and I once had. The space buzzed with opening night energy. Champagne glasses catching gallery lighting. Conversations flowing around abstract compositions that spoke to human connection. See anything you like? Vivian appeared beside me, elegant in black silk that made her blonde hair shine like spun gold, just admiring the view. I wasn't looking at paintings anymore. 3 decades of self-pity protection had taught me to expect disappointment, but this woman consistently proved my pessimism wrong. The artist is quite talented, local, I hear. She moved closer, her familiar perfume mixing with gallery aromas of wine and possibility. Is she? I hadn't noticed. My name was displayed beside 12 architectural drawings that had been transformed into art installations. Housing developments that prioritized beauty alongside affordability. Community spaces designed for connection rather than profit. Vivian had suggested the gallery showing, calling my work too meaningful to hide in construction meetings. Noelle Carter, residential design specialist, she read aloud. Has a nice ring to it. Better than struggling sketch artist. You were never struggling. You were building towards something better. A young couple paused in front of my community center design. The woman pointing excitedly at details while her girlfriend nodded along. They reminded me of us 6 months ago. Different backgrounds, obvious class differences, but something electric connecting them despite external barriers. Think they'll make it? I asked quietly. Depends on whether they're brave enough to fight for each other when it gets difficult. Vivian's hand found mine, fingers interlacing naturally. Some couples are. The subtle reference to our own journey made me smile. We'd learned to navigate public attention with grace rather than fear. Cape Coral had moved on to newer scandals, but we discovered something valuable in the process. Authentic relationships survive external pressure better than secret ones. Miss Carter, a reporter approached with camera and notepad. Local Arts Weekly, could we discuss your transition from private contracts to community-focused design? Of course. The interview covered my architectural philosophy, the affordable housing project, my partnership with Harris Properties, professional questions with professional answers. But when the reporter asked about inspiration sources, I looked directly at Vivian. The best designs come from understanding what people actually need. Not what they think they want, but what creates genuine happiness in daily life. Sometimes that requires seeing familiar spaces through completely different eyes. That's beautifully put. Any personal experiences that shaped this perspective? Vivian squeezed my hand encouragingly. Recently, I learned that taking risks for authentic connection creates possibilities you never imagined alone. My work reflects that discovery. The reporter scribbled notes, clearly hoping for more personal details. But some stories belong to the people who lived them, not to public consumption. After she left, Vivian and I wandered toward the painting that had started everything. 2 figures intertwined in abstract brushstrokes, drowning or saving each other against violent reds and peaceful blues. Still devastating, she murmured. Still beautiful. A young man approached hesitantly, clearly recognizing us from local news coverage. Excuse me, you're Vivian Hale, right? And Noelle Carter? That's right. I wanted to thank you. My boyfriend and I have been together 2 years, but we've been hiding it from our families. Watching how you handled public scrutiny gave us courage to be honest about who we are. Vivian's eyes grew bright. How did your families react? Better than expected. Turns out love isn't as scary as secrets. He smiled shyly. We're moving in together next month into one of your affordable housing units. Actually, after he left, we stood in comfortable silence, surrounded by art and possibility. No regrets? Vivian asked softly. I thought about everything we'd survived. Public harassment that had initially driven us apart. Business sabotage designed to destroy our relationship. Family expectations neither of us could fulfill. Personal insecurities that had nearly cost us each other. Only one. Her eyebrow arched. The same expression she'd worn that first night in her office. I regret we wasted time thinking we were too different to work. Turns out our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Architect meets real estate agent, she said, echoing our first conversation. Practical dreamer meets ambitious realist. Poor girl meets rich woman. Woman meets woman, I corrected. Everything else is just details. She kissed me then, soft and public and utterly without shame. Around us, gallery visitors continued their conversations. Wine continued flowing. Art kept opening doors to new possibilities. But standing there, surrounded by images of human connection, I grasped something essential. Love isn't about deserving each other or checking boxes, it's about choosing to build something together that neither of us could create alone. Sometimes that means surviving storms meant to split you apart. Sometimes it means standing in the open, refusing to hide what brings you joy. Ready to go home? Vivian breathed against my lips. Lead the way. We left the gallery hand in hand, passing the same painting that had first drawn us together 6 months earlier. Outside, Seabrook shimmered with promise beneath the California stars, and I knew our story was only just beginning.